No need to push the clutch in. Just turn the key. Hope it's not in gear. What's up, YouTube? Not only do we have the 91 Diablo with the GT body, now I've got the 98 Diablo VT Roadster. The car is here, the car is cool, and I really dig driving this car. I am very impressed with the way that this 98 Diablo VT drives. So the 91 is badass. I love driving the car, but it's like driving a hot rod. No power steering, no ABS, no traction control. All that stuff makes the 91 feel like you're driving a hot rod. I mean, the car feels heavy even though it really only weighs about 3,300 pounds. This car weighs about 4,000 pounds because it's all-wheel drive and it's got power steering, it's got the ABS, it's got airbags, all that stuff in it. But the car feels lighter and it feels way more refined to drive. Even the seats in this car are more comfortable, which is crazy because these are 98 seats and that car actually has 2001 6.0 seats. So those seats are newer, but they're a little bit stiffer and not as comfortable. This car is almost like driving a Cadillac of Lamborghinis. I've driven a lot of Lamborghinis. I've driven, I had the LP 640. I've had a bunch of Murcielagos. For some reason, the Roadster is the easiest Diablo or the easiest Lamborghini I've ever driven. And I don't necessarily know why. I don't know what they did differently and why they did it, but it's almost like they took into consideration some other things in the design of the car, and maybe it's because the chassis isn't as stiff as the coupe version, so that these are a very stiff chassis. They tried to do the same thing on these, but maybe because the roof removes and the whole thing can flex a little bit, it just feels so much different driving this car than any other Lamborghini I've ever driven. I'm really impressed. It takes a lot in me to say I like it more than my 91 because I don't think I do. But if I had to drive one every single day, I would choose this car. The other cool thing about the Roadster is the top panel removes. But even with the roof panel on, which I'm not a huge fan of, I just feel like the car kind of looks ugly. I mean, it's sexy, but it looks uglier with it on than with it off. But with it on, there's about 3 inches more headroom in the Diablo Roadster than there is in the Diablo coupes. So if you're tall, this would definitely be the car to have. And having the roof panel off, even when it was 40 degrees the other day when I drove it, I was still quite warm. So it's actually pretty reasonable to drive this car almost all year round with the top off. And then with the top off, you can be super tall and it doesn't really matter whether it's on there or not. But you could be pretty tall and drive this car. And for some reason, even on the interior, the space just feels quite a bit different. And maybe it's just because the interior is lighter. And since it's lighter, it doesn't feel as, claustrophobic. This car, it's all dark, so it feels more claustrophobic. If there's a word I could use to describe how it feels inside that car. I mean, that car feels like a cockpit. This car doesn't. Love them both. I still love the 91. I still love driving it. But this car is it's just so refined. I mean, even the 2001 6.0 I had just wasn't as comfortable to drive or as easy to drive. I took this car out the other night and it was super foggy, like you could barely see in front of you. I probably shouldn't have driven it because, odds of getting smacked in the rear end in fog is a lot higher than when it's really nice outside. But I drove this car in the fog. It was actually really easy to see out the back. So even though, I don't know if you can see this, but you're able to see out that back window. really easy. For some reason, it just felt like the visibility out of this car was a lot easier than out of this car. And this car, I mean, I guess you can see why it's not as easy to see out of, you know. But this car just really seemed easy to drive, easy for me to be in. And, you know, it's not as obnoxious because it actually has factory exhaust in the car. So with factory exhaust, it's not as loud, you know, so driving it, you're not having to pay attention to everything with a little bit more detail. You know, you can actually hear stuff in this car. So I'm pretty excited about it. I don't know how long I'm going to be able to keep it or have it. You know, I mean, there's a question, do I sell, if I'm going to sell one of the cars, do I sell the Roadster or do I sell the 91? That's going to be the question. So far, I still say I'd probably end up selling the Roadster, even after everything I just said, just because this car would be irreplaceable. There's no way I would be able to find the Diablo GT body and replicate this car in any way, shape, or form. It would be probably almost impossible. And if I could, I know that there was a couple bodies made. If I could find it, the time and effort and everything it would take to put into buying another Diablo and replicating that car, you'd spend, I bet you'd spend 350, 400 grand after purchasing the donor car, the body, spending all the money and labor and having it all, you know, put on the car properly, you know, the body done right, all the paint done right. This car was completely repainted when it was done. So, you know, all the windows were taken out. This car was stripped all the way down. So everything was done. This car was painted as if it was done at the factory. And the paint on this car is amazing. Like, this car is as well. You can see how nice the paint is. But this paint is 21 years old. This paint is like 10 years old. And you can tell. I mean, just from, you know, age and being driven, this car has roughly 38,000 miles on it, like 62,000 kilometers or something. This car has 19,000 miles on it, and the paint only has, I think, about 9,000, 10,000 miles on it, maybe less than that. Probably, well, actually, yeah, quite a bit less than that. I think it's probably only got a couple thousand miles on the paint, actually. So this car would be super hard to replace. And so I think just for that, you know, I would want to keep the 91 over the 98. I'd love to be able to keep both. So, you know, let's grow my YouTube channel so that YouTube helps pay me, and then I can keep my Lamborghinis and I can go buy more. So click subscribe if you like my channel. Let me know what else you want to see. I'll do some in-car footage of the car, you know, go driving around and stuff like that. Do some more videos. Hopefully we can get both of them out together. Maybe I can do a little bit of a race. Maybe I can hit up Strad and see if we want to see if my Diablo is faster than his Aventador. I'm really curious to see how fast this Diablo is because the engine is super healthy and the car is very light. It is lighter than even a typical 91. I need to throw it on the scales, but I bet this car is close to 3,300 pounds. And I think Aventadors are over 4,000. So who knows? You know, it'd be really interesting to see. The 91s were always known to be fast. This car, you know, I just changed out the rear diff, or the ring and pinion, so it's got a little bit more acceleration to it. So it'd be very interesting to see what would be faster. So if you want to see that, let me know. Maybe I can get a hold of Strad and we can do something like that. Okay, so to remove the roof panel on the Roadster, there's a couple different things that you have to do. Right back here, there's a little lever that you have to pull. You do that on both sides. And then there's just this little lever here that you have to pull down. And that's it. This panel is carbon. It probably only weighs, I don't know, 10 pounds. It's a little awkward to do it alone, but you can do it alone. And then it just comes from here, slides right back into here, and then you've got yourself a Roadster. And what's really nice is that, you know, it's nice being a hardtop, because if you got caught in the rain or anything like that, you could just take it off and put it back on. And so, I mean, it's a very versatile car. And I really like that about it. You know, one other cool little feature about this car is the windows go up and down because they tuck up underneath the top. And so I didn't know that they had that technology back in 1998, but apparently they did. And Lamborghini was utilizing it, which is pretty impressive to me as well. So it took me about, I don't know, 3 minutes. I took the top off. You can see how it just rests right here on the back of the bonnet. And this is what a Diablo Roadster is supposed to look like to me. Very versatile design. You know, you're able to take the top off. If the weather changes, you can put it back on. Five-speed dogleg manual transmission. All right, so we can come back over to the 91 coupe. You can just see the design, and you know, there's some design differences that they had to change to make the Roadster viable. And one of them is just, you know, the biggest notice is right here. So we've got the rear window with the scoop that gives you the air intake, and then you've got the radiator intake right here. And on the Roadster, they had to change it up a little bit. There's no window. You've got the air intake right here, and you've got the radiator scoop right here. So the radiator scoop, all this is pretty similar, but all this area right here is quite a bit different. I really like the look of the car with the top off. You can see how far the windows come over, and you know, the roof panel really doesn't cover a whole lot of area, and so with it off, it doesn't get too windy inside the car or anything. It's actually a really comfortable drive with the top off, and you know, the road noise isn't too bad. These cars just transfer a lot of road noise compared to anything that's modern, like a Huracan or a Venador or anything like that. These cars didn't have as much sound deadening material in them to stop the road noise, but that was kind of that's one of those enthusiastic appeals of these cars. I mean, this car just transfers so much road noise. It has even less sound deadening than this car does. And that might be one of the things that attribute the Roadster to being a little bit more comfortable to drive, especially not having the aftermarket exhaust. Just a nice, comfortable ride. You know, you still hear the V12, but you don't hear it scream like you do in this car. But overall, you know, the noises that you hear in the cockpit are just, you know, it's an enthusiastic type thing. You either enjoy it and appreciate it for what it is, or you don't. But that's why I like Diablos. That's why I like Lamborghini. I am an enthusiast. I like the raw appeal of the cars. Even though I say this car is so much more refined and easier to drive than that car, they're still both very, you know, raw automobiles. The new stuff like a Huracan and a Venador, they've really kind of taken over, and you know, you can see why. And you can also see why they're getting so many more miles put on them. They're just a lot more comfortable type of car to drive every single day. But this car right here, there's a reason why it's got, you know, 38,000 miles on it or so, and it's because it's amazing it doesn't have 100,000 miles on it, quite honestly. I'm amazed that more of these Roadsters don't have 100,000 miles on them. I have seen some of them, you know, getting close to that, and people driving them, but it is just such an easy car to drive that it makes more sense to me as to why these had higher miles on them than the older cars. And that's just because these cars are a little bit more stubborn to drive. You kind of have to be in the mood for its attitude and its personality. This car still has attitude and personality, but it isn't as difficult to have a relationship with as it is with this car. There you have it. 2 different style Diablos. I hope you guys enjoy it. Click subscribe on my channel. I'm out.